On February 9th, 2004, a 21-year-old nursing student drove away from her university campus in Massachusetts. Just a few hours later, her car would be found wrecked on a rural road in New Hampshire. When police arrived, she was gone. And despite one of the most discussed missing person investigations in modern American history, no one has been able to explain exactly where she went. To understand why this case remains so haunting, you have to look at the days leading up to her disappearance. Maura Murray was a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Before that, she had attended the United States Military Academy at West Point before transferring to UMass. By all accounts, she was intelligent, athletic, and capable. But in the months before she vanished, there were signs that life had become increasingly complicated. In November of 2003, she admitted to using a stolen credit card to order food from several local restaurants. The incident eventually resulted in disciplinary action. Then, on the evening of February 5th, 2004, just 4 days before she disappeared, something unusual happened. While working a shift at her campus job, Maura received a phone call from her older sister, Kathleen. According to reports, Kathleen was discussing personal problems involving her fiancé. After the call ended, Maura reportedly became so upset that a supervisor noticed something was wrong. When asked what had happened, she responded with only a few words: "My sister." The exact details of that conversation would remain unclear for years. 2 days later, on February 7th, Maura's father visited Amherst. The two spent part of the day together, shopping and having dinner. That evening, Maura attended a dorm party. Sometime after midnight, she left. Then around 3:30 in the morning, something else happened. While driving her father's Toyota Corolla, Maura crashed into a guardrail on Route 9 in Hadley, Massachusetts. The damage was estimated at roughly $10,000. No serious injuries were reported, but it was another unexpected event in an already difficult stretch of time. The next day, Sunday, was relatively quiet. Then came Monday, February 9th, the day that would change everything. Shortly after midnight, Maura used her computer to search for directions to destinations in Vermont and New Hampshire. She also searched for information about local lodging. At 1 p.m., she emailed her boyfriend. The message was affectionate and ended with a promise that they would talk later. At 1:13 p.m., she called a fellow nursing student. The reason for that call remains unclear. Then, at 1:24 p.m., Maura contacted a nursing school supervisor and said she would be away for a week due to a death in the family. There was one problem: no death had occurred. Later that afternoon, records show she called a condominium rental line in Bartlett, New Hampshire. She also contacted a motel booking service. Whatever plans she was making, they appeared deliberate. At some point, she packed clothing, toiletries, textbooks, and personal items into her car. Investigators later discovered that many of the boxes had been removed from her dorm room and packed away. Printed on top of some of those belongings was an email suggesting there may have been difficulties in her relationship. Around 3:30 p.m., Maura left campus in her black 1996 Saturn sedan. She never attended another class. A little over an hour later, surveillance cameras captured her alone inside a liquor store. She purchased several alcoholic beverages. At 4:37 p.m., she checked her voicemail. It would be the last recorded use of her cell phone. Then she headed north. Exactly where she intended to go remains unknown. For the next few hours, her journey is largely unaccounted for. Then at approximately 7:27 p.m., residents along Route 112 in Woodsville, New Hampshire, heard a loud sound outside. A car had gone off the road. When witnesses looked outside, they saw a dark vehicle resting near a sharp curve. The driver appeared to be a young woman. One witness contacted emergency services. Another person who lived nearby, a school bus driver, stopped to check on her. According to his account, the woman appeared shaken and cold, but not seriously injured. He offered assistance. She declined. The bus driver later said she told him she had already called AAA, but there was a problem with that explanation. The area reportedly had little to no cellular reception, and later investigators found no record of any AAA call. The driver insisted she was fine. The bus driver returned home and called police himself. It seemed like a routine roadside accident. For a few minutes, nothing appeared extraordinary. Then everything changed. According to official records, a police officer arrived at approximately 7:46 p.m. The woman was gone, not walking down the road, not sitting in a nearby vehicle, not waiting for help, gone. The Saturn remained at the crash site. The damage was significant. The driver's side had struck a tree. The windshield was cracked. The airbags had deployed. Inside the vehicle, investigators found an assortment of personal belongings: jewelry, makeup, compact discs, driving directions, a stuffed animal, a book about mountain climbing in New Hampshire's White Mountains. There were also red stains that initially raised concern, but were later associated with spilled wine. Some items, however, were noticeably absent: her debit card, her credit cards, her cell phone. None have ever been recovered. Some of the alcohol she purchased earlier that day was also missing. The more investigators examined the scene, the stranger it became. A rag had been stuffed into the Saturn's tailpipe. Authorities later suggested it may have been an attempt to reduce smoke coming from the vehicle. Yet another detail without a clear explanation. Then came a witness statement that complicated the timeline even further. A local resident later reported seeing what appeared to be a police SUV near Maura's vehicle before the officially documented arrival time. If accurate, the observation would create a contradiction in the timeline. But like so many aspects of this case, certainty remained elusive. And then there was another possible sighting. A contractor driving home later reported seeing a young person walking quickly along Route 112, several miles east of the crash site. At the time, he didn't realize the significance of what he had seen. Only months later, after reviewing records, did he conclude the sighting may have occurred on the same night Maura disappeared. Whether that person was Maura has never been confirmed. Search efforts began. Investigators retraced the area. Witnesses were interviewed. The timeline was reconstructed. Yet the central mystery remained untouched. How does someone vanish during the narrow window between a roadside conversation and a police arrival? For years, authorities considered the possibility that Maura left voluntarily. After all, she had packed belongings. She had searched for lodging. She had traveled without telling friends or family exactly where she was going. But over time, investigators became less certain. In 2009, the case was transferred to New Hampshire's Cold Case Unit and classified as a suspicious missing person investigation. And that is where the story remains today. A young woman leaves campus. She drives north. Her car crashes on a dark rural road. A witness speaks with her. Police arrive minutes later, and she is nowhere to be found. More than 20 years have passed since that winter night. Thousands of theories have emerged. Countless hours have been spent examining timelines, witness statements, and evidence. Yet the most important piece of the puzzle remains missing. What happened to Maura Murray after the crash? Somewhere between 7:27 and 7:46 that evening, the answer seems to exist. And until that missing piece is found, one of America's most enduring disappearance mysteries remains unsolved.